Hello, and welcome back for another Torah Tuesday. I'm so thankful to have you journeying with me through the book of Exodus. It's been such a gift to me to share what I'm learning with others, to have your enthusiastic feedback, and it just keeps me on track. It also motivates me to tidy up my office regularly, so thank you for that. I wanted to let you know about a new resource before I dive into today's passage. I just had a course on Exodus release with biblicaltraining.org. It's a free course that takes you through the entire book of Exodus at a little bit higher level than what we do in these videos. In these videos, we're working verse by verse by verse, and I'm pointing out particular words and things. The course on Exodus with Biblical Training gives a little bit wider angle view on the themes and the way that the book unfolds, the way that it's structured. There are 31 lessons, and they're about a half an hour each. Again, it's free. You can sign up at biblicaltraining.org. For those of you familiar with my class on Exodus for the Bible Project, this is similar content. There's a lot of overlap, but I studied the book for 2 more years before recording with Biblical Training. So there is some additional content that was not in my Bible Project classroom. So I hope you enjoy. If you do take the course, either course, I would love to hear about how it went for you. Today we're picking it up in Exodus chapter 16, verses 19 through 30. And as usual, I'll begin by reading from my own translation of Exodus. Then Moses said to them, "No one may leave any of it until morning." But they did not listen to Moses, and some of the men left some of it until morning. It became full of maggots and it stank, so Moses became angry at them. They gathered it morning by morning, enough food for each mouth. But when the sun grew warm, it dissolved. Now on the 6th day, they gathered for themselves twofold, 2 omers for each one. All the community leaders came and told Moses. He said to them, "This is what Yahweh has spoken. A cessation, a Sabbath set apart for Yahweh is tomorrow. Whatever you want to bake, bake. Whatever you want to cook, cook. Whatever remains, put aside for yourselves to save until the morning." So they put it aside until the morning, just as Moses commanded, but it did not stink, and no worm was in it. Then Moses said, "Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to Yahweh. Today you will not find it in the open country. 6 days you are to gather it, but on the 7th day, the Sabbath, none will be there." Now on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather, but they did not find any. So Yahweh said to Moses, "Until when will you refuse to keep my commands and my instructions? Look, because Yahweh gave you the Sabbath, that is why he gives you bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Each person must stay put. A person shall not leave their place on the 7th day." So the people stopped on the 7th day. All right, in a previous video, we already mentioned that there are so many echoes of Passover in this passage, so many different phrases that come up with Passover, and one of those is not leaving any of it until morning. So it's interesting because with the Passover, they were not supposed to leave any of it until morning. They were supposed to completely consume the Passover sacrifice, and that made sure that nothing was wasted. In this case, if they left something till morning, it got maggots and started to spoil. So this is working against the natural human tendency to want to hoard things and save them for the future, because we don't trust that there's going to be provision tomorrow for what we need. And so God is working against this. He intends the bread to be enjoyed fully the day that he provides it, apart from any human management that sought to store the miracle for later. So he just wants them to eat, drink, and be merry, as it says in Ecclesiastes. He wants them to trust that he's going to provide for them tomorrow as well. Pharaoh, if you think about it, had forced them to build storage cities. That's why they were making mud bricks, so that he could build these huge warehouses to store up treasure for the future. So God's economy is totally different than Pharaoh's. He does not want them saving things up for the future. They could neither hoard manna nor procrastinate in collecting it. It was only available early in the morning, and once the sun was high in the sky, the manna was gone. So God is training them to work diligently, but also to trust his provision. Trust that he's going to keep providing that work day by day. In verse 22, it isn't clear when the leaders come to Moses whether they are reporting good news, like, okay, everybody's collected double today, or if they're tattling or reporting a crime. Everybody collected double today. Like, what's going on? Either is possible, but either way, Moses responds by explaining God's plan for the seventh day. So we already talked about how they couldn't leave any manna overnight because it would go rotten by the next day. But on the sixth day, the miracle of provision turned into a miracle of preservation. So they gathered twice as much on the sixth day and then didn't gather any on the seventh day. They couldn't, even if they wanted to. If they went out and tried to gather, they would find that there's none. Now, this works against a naturalistic explanation of manna. Any naturalistic explanation fails to explain how it would show up 6 mornings in a row and not on the 7th morning in a regular rhythm. Clearly, this is miraculous. I think it's really interesting that the word tomorrow shows up here. Speaking of God's provision tomorrow, because when we were in Egypt listening to the signs and wonders, every time God said tomorrow, it was an ominous threat about when a new sign was going to come against the people of Egypt. But here, tomorrow is a promise of God's provision. The Sabbath is an entirely new institution. The idea of stopping or ceasing one day a week is not known in the ancient world. Some of the commentators that I've checked say that the Assyrians had a 7-day pattern that they followed because of the phases of the moon, but they didn't rest on the 7th day. They thought the 7th day was an auspicious day, that was sort of dangerous, magically dangerous. And so they were nervous about the 7th day, but it wasn't an invitation to rest. So whether this is connected to that in any way or not isn't clear. But if it is connected, it's only by way of contrast. God is showing that his way of running the world is one that invites people into the experience of regular rest and refreshment. He's not the kind of ruler that Pharaoh was in Egypt. He's the kind of ruler that looks out for the flourishing of all people. So as I said in verse 24, we have this miracle of preservation. The manna that they collect on the 6th day lasts until the 7th day so that they don't have to go out and collect again. But in verse 27, we see that some people refuse to follow instructions and they go out and try to look for manna on the 7th day and they don't find any. To work on the Sabbath constituted a refusal to receive the gift of rest that God offered. He provided double on day 6 so they could rest on day 7. And to break the Sabbath was to basically turn your back on God and say that he's not capable of providing everything I need. Stopping does not come naturally. We live in a world riddled with anxiety where we're always saving up for the future because we're worried about running out. In this anxious world, we must learn the rhythms of trust and rest, learning to trust God's provision and to release our need to grasp at our future security. One final thing to note is that the death penalty for breaking the Sabbath does not come into play until after they leave Sinai. Breaking the Sabbath is really serious. In Numbers 15, verses 32 through 36, those who break the Sabbath die. But here, before they've arrived at Sinai and received all of God's instructions, God is gently training them. Like a parent who teaches their toddler not to throw a tantrum because it doesn't get you what you want, so God is training his people to work 6 days diligently and then rest on the 7th. Many Christians today assume that we can just ignore the Sabbath command from the 10 Commandments, that that's the one that doesn't apply anymore. And I think that is such a travesty because God is offering to us a way of life that includes regular periods of rest. And he's inviting us today to learn to trust him and not to work nonstop, because He didn't create us to work nonstop. He created us to stop and enjoy what He's given us with one another. So I hope that you make plans this week to stop and enjoy God's rest. Have a great week.